Hello, everyone. Danny here today to talk to you about a book that was a request. Now, it's a request from some family members. My sister Carlina and her family went on my channel and requested that I do a book, any book by Patrick McManus. And from the way they worded the request, I got a feeling they think they were introducing me to a new author, giving me a real treat, introducing me to a new author. Little do you guys know, I grew up with Patrick McManus. I recognized that name the instant I saw your request. I did not know that he had published books. And I did not know further that a lot of his books have made it on Audible. There are 10 of his books on Audible. And of course I saw that and I was immediately like, yeah, I'll do a Patrick McManus. I mean, the dude's awesome. So, for those of you who don't know who Patrick McManus is, Patrick McManus is best known for his humor writing. Where I found him was from Outdoor Life and Field and Stream, two magazines that I subscribed to as a very, very young boy. Ludlow's, you can ask your mom what my room looked like. I would go through those magazines and I would cut out pictures of animals and tack them around on the wall to cover up all the BB holes that were in my wall from me shooting at the little pictures on the wall. That was one of the things I used those magazines for. Anyhow, back to this book. So this is a series of short stories. And the best way to describe his stories is actually to talk a bit more about the author than about the book itself. And so this review is probably going to cover more about the author than about this one particular book. Before I get into that, though, I have a favor to ask. If, like me, you love audiobooks, please subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications, come join me on my audiobook journey. Now, why do I say that I would talk more about the author and less about this particular book of his? Because Patrick McManus has a very distinct style of humor. I've heard it oftentimes compared to Mark Twain, and I can see the comparison there. I can see why people would compare his style of humor to Mark Twain's style of humor. It's a very homespun, homey kind of a feel, small town feel kind of a humor. It's 100% safe for the family. You're not going to find anything remotely sexual, no swearing, nothing like that. These are excellent books. You've got a long car ride with the family. These are books to get for that long car ride with the family because he has a style of humor that will appeal to everyone, even if you're not an outdoorsman, which Patrick McManus is very much an outdoorsman, and a lot of his stories revolve around the outdoors. He grew up in rural America where you do a lot of hunting and a lot of fishing, and boys are outside exploring, hunting, and fishing. And his stories all revolve around him and his life and his friends and his community. And so they have that outdoor element to them, but you don't have to be an outdoorsman to enjoy the stories and the humor that's in there any more than I have to be a lawyer to enjoy a good joke about lawyers or, I don't know, anyhow, from Mississippi to enjoy Mark Twain kind of a thing. They appeal to the entire family. I have loved his stories since I was a little boy. I thoroughly loved listening to this book. There were stories that made me smile. There were stories that had me rolling on the floor with laughter. So the title of Bear in the Attic is based on one of the short stories in the book. And the stories run the gamut from stories about hunting and stories about fishing to stories about someone trying to get out of joining the army and the havoc that causes around him. In a lot of the stories, he presents them as if you're sitting at his table or sitting in the living room and he's telling you stories. So they're done in this first person kind of, I'm just telling you a story about something that happened to me. Gather around, children. I'm going to tell you this story kind of a thing. And he's very oblivious to what is going on. A lot of the humor comes from him making fun of himself, but it's a very subtle kind of making fun of himself, that comes across like, hey, I'm making fun of myself, but I'm also completely unaware of the fact that right now I'm making fun of myself. I think I'm being observant and I'm being clever, and actually what I'm doing is I'm being silly and I'm making fun of myself. He's a very well-loved. I don't know. I haven't subscribed to Outdoor Life or Field and Stream since I left home to join the Marine Corps. So I don't know if he's still a contributor to those magazines, but his articles in those magazines were my favorite part of those magazines. His stories were good enough and humorous enough that, quite honestly, the price I paid for the subscription to those two magazines would have been worth it if the only thing they came with was his story in the back of the book. Now, I got a lot more out of them than just his story in the back of the book. But if all I ever got was just his story in the back of the book, it would arrive. And it's like Reader's Digest. Anyone who's familiar with Reader's Digest, you grab a Reader's Digest, and what's one of the first things you do with Reader's Digest? You go flip through to the jokes, right? A day in the life. All right, I'm gonna sit here and read a day in the life, which is one of their jokes kind of things. Humor in uniform, I think, is another one. My parents still subscribe to Reader's Digest, and when I go over to their house, that's what I do. Hey, go to the joke section. Then I look to see if there's any good articles. That's the way it was with these magazines. Go straight to the back. His articles were always in the back. Go straight to the back, find his humor column, read his humor column, and then see what the magazine had, because his humor column was the best part of the magazine. And I was listening to these when I was a boy. When you're a boy, you always eat dessert first, unless your parents stop you. Let's face it. That young, and really as adults, we should do that sometimes too. We should just go ahead and eat dessert first. I know it's kind of a cliche thing nowadays, but it makes you feel young again when you do that. When you go, hey, I'm going to have dessert, then I'm going to go eat the healthy dinner crap that I have to eat to stay healthy and fit and everything else. It's a sort of humor that can take a bit of time to develop. Some of the stories are surprisingly intricate before you get to the humor. And I say they're surprisingly intricate because it's got that homespun, down-home sense of humor, and you don't expect intricacies from something homespun and down-home. But what that does is it draws you in, and it makes you feel like you are a part of his life. It makes you feel like you are a part of his community. And this is one of the reasons why I say the entire family will enjoy it, because the entire family, you got that favorite uncle or your grandpa that y'all get together and he starts telling stories about when he was younger, and everyone is fascinated. Everyone enjoys the stories about when I get together with my sisters and their kids gather around, and me and my sisters are telling stories about when we were younger. We're loving reminiscing, and the kids are all gathered around. They're fascinated by these stories. It's that sort of a thing. It draws you in, and it just makes you feel like you're sitting there with your favorite uncle, and he's reminiscing about his childhood. He's reminiscing about when he was younger. And some of them, you can see the humor coming a mile away. You know what's coming with this one. And then some of them, when the humor hits, you're like, I wondered where that was going. I was wondering how he was going to turn that into something funny. It is narrated by Norman Dietz, who is an excellent choice for a narrator. He has a voice and a style and a delivery that adds to that favorite uncle sitting around telling you a story kind of a feel. He's got the right age in his voice. His voice doesn't sound too young. His voice doesn't sound too old. it fits the stories to where you really do, the voice goes with the stories to combine, so you can almost picture in your head wherever your favorite spot is to sit and reminisce with family. You can picture yourself sitting there as you're listening to these stories, listening to one of your favorite uncles telling these humorous, funny stories. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you like my channel, subscribe, turn on notifications. Questions, comments, feedback, it's what the comment section's for. Put them in there. But most importantly, no matter what else you do today, make sure that today you listen to at least one really good audiobook. And I highly recommend any book by Patrick McManus. But the one book of his that I have listened to, and I'm going to listen to some more, trust me on this one. The one book that I have listened to, A Bear in the Attic, definitely. Oh, one more thing, if you've made it this far into the video, kind of interesting. On Audible, there's two versions of this book. One version is 7 hours and 24 minutes long. The other version is 7 hours and 15 minutes long. There is a 9-minute difference between those two books, and it's almost a $4 difference for the longer book. What could they add that takes 9 minutes and is worth $4 more? I don't know. I used a credit on the book, but I found that to be very interesting. Have a good day.